All right, well, thank you so much for having me here today. I'm really excited to talk to you all. First of all, can you tell me just a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure, I'm Dr. John Allen. I'm an assistant professor here at UTMB and part of our Center for Addiction Research. I'm a drug hunter, I guess I'd say, or technically a neuropharmacologist. I'm really interested in doing research at the interface of chemistry and medicinal chemistry, and trying to find new targets that could be impactful to make a difference for individuals suffering from mental illnesses, particularly stress-related disorders. And a drug hunter, I guess.
Thank you. Dr. Cunningham.
Catherine Cunningham. I'm in the Department of Pharmacology professor and the director of the Center for Addiction Research. And I work with him. He tells me what to do.
Oh.
No, I'm a drug hunter too.
Dr. Garcia?
My name is Eric Garcia. I'm a postdoctoral researcher in the Center for Addiction Research. And broadly, I'm interested in understanding individual differences that play a role in susceptibilities, and also for the susceptibilities for substance use disorders, as well as other psychological disorders, including stress disorders.
Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you again for having me. So, Dr. Allen, tell us a little bit about what are stress-related disorders?
Sure. Well, I think just, it's good to step back and think that just mental illness generally can affect up to 1 in 5 U.S. adults. It's quite pervasive. Stress-related disorders, there's several of them. Probably the most common is anxiety, right? Which I think everyone at one point or another experiences anxiety. Up to 30% of U.S. adults actually have clinical anxiety. Subsets of stress-related disorders also include disorders like post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. What is PTSD? PTSD is an individual experiences a traumatic event in their life. It could be experiencing a natural disaster like a hurricane. It could be experiencing this remarkable thing we're all going through with coronavirus, having huge impact on our lives, loss of loved ones. Individuals that are suffering from war, that are our veterans. All of that, unusual, long-lasting negative effects of thought and feeling resulting from these traumatic events that can last months to years, often manifesting themselves in major depression, anxiety, and in the worst case scenario, outcomes like suicide are a really bad outcome. So that's a little overview of stress-related disorders.
Thank you. So, what are the cures, if any, or any kind of treatments for this?
Yeah, that's something that has really challenged psychological disorders, as well as understanding really what manifests and creates these situations in these people. One of the things that is important to understand is that everybody is different, but with that being said, a lot of the frontline medications for treating people who are suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder is antidepressants, like Dr. Allen had just mentioned. A lot of those manifestations are with depression and other anxiety-related disorders. So finding ways and those frontline medications for antidepressants generally increase serotonin in the brain, and we think that that is a direct way to try to help people better their mood and reduce those negative outcomes that are associated with increased stress. The one challenge with that really comes with that's really only effective in about 25 to 50% of people. So there are significant challenges that remain with the other people who are suffering from this disorder, and that's really where I think the Center for Addiction Research really highlights an opportunity for us to better people's lives by changing or through medication development to ultimately change their lives.
Well, given those kind of challenges, what's happening now with the research in this area, and what gives you hope?
There is a great amount of hope, and there's some really provocative perspectives about stress and anxiety and negative affect that goes along with PTSD. And Eric just mentioned a really important aspect, which is individual differences. So not everybody responds to a traumatic event in the same way. So, and it's really pretty evident. I think, what did you say the numbers are, 25 or 30% of?
25 to 50% of people, our current frontline medications aren't effective in them.
Yeah, so you have a percentage of people that are suffering these disorders and there's no way to treat them. And I think one of our really interesting perspectives about this is the potential for psychedelics. Psychedelics have come back. They've resurrected from the perspective of their use as an abused drugs. They are abused. However, they've come back into the therapeutic arena. We've already approved, the FDA has approved ketamine, S-ketamine, which is a psychedelic type of drug for treatment-resistant depression. The FDA has also approved a breakthrough therapy status for psilocybin, so it's being used in PTSD. And we, in the Center for Addiction Research, have a very vast and deep experience with the mechanisms associated with those drugs. And we have made molecules that are very similar to psychedelics, but we don't think they're going to be psychedelics. We think they're going to be non-psychedelic psychedelics that'll be useful for treating these disorders. So that's an example of one of the ways that we're thinking about this. There's also a big push to try to understand there's a whole lot of cells in the brain. We think about them as neurons, right? But there's a lot of other cells, and we believe that these psychedelics just work for a number of different cells in the brain, and we need to understand that better and the circuits, which we're doing.
That's really fascinating. That is very helpful. That's neat. So, I mean, to get that done, what is it researchers like y'all need to be able to further this research or this work?
Well, in my thinking, it's fundamental to have sustained research. You begin our projects, they're very exciting. We maybe get initial monies to support us from the federal government, from the National Institutes of Health, for example, or some foundations. But those are very challenging paths to continue sustained funding in research, particularly with neuropsychiatric diseases that have limited resources to fund these types of science. And one of the worst outcomes would be to begin a project and have that work going, and you're making breakthroughs, but then the funding dries up, and it's very challenging for you to continue with the momentum, with the discoveries and the excitement to continue. So I think sustained funding is absolutely essential, and it is a big difficulty for academic scientists that are on the front line of new discoveries. Once things mature, once our exciting new molecules actually are tested at the level of what we do in the laboratory, then we gain interest from the private sector. We get pharmaceutical companies on board that get excited about what we do. And that's what we do as academic scientists. We push the envelope to create these new things, to open up new avenues. And we need a sustained level of funding for that until we can get that investment from the private sector. And there's money there, but it has to mature sufficiently to get interest from the private sector. So I think that's fundamental.
Yeah, and with that, I think that's a really excellent point. Adding to that, I think one of the things that is impeding academics in general and research in general is the inability to maintain people from diverse backgrounds. And one of the things that we know going forward is diverse perspectives build collaborative relationships. Diverse teams are better at coming up and solving the problems that emerge. So having a program that supports diverse and includes multidisciplinary perspectives is something that is ultimately at the forefront of what we can do. So how we can do that and try to build up from the grassroots is to try to encourage graduate students and through scholarships to engage science, engage scientists, engage the community, and get people excited about what they're doing, and then share that so people have a better understanding of what they're investing in, which is their education.
That's fascinating. Thank you so much.